What if pain isn't the problem, but actually the pathway back to you? You're listening to The Leadership Wound, From Pain to Permission. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is where we get honest about the real cost of leadership, the burnout, the pretending, the rejection, and the return to your authentic self. Because this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Welcome to the leader you've always been. What leadership wound have you had to face in the past, and what did it reveal about you as you went through that process?
Boy, that's a really deep question.
We're going deep.
We're going deep, nosedive. You know, I think a leadership wound that I'm aware of within my own experience is one of not being good enough at times in my life where I have compared myself to others. And it is the work of digging deep into my own experience and going back to do some healing work, quite frankly, around those belief systems that I have carried with me from certain experiences in my childhood.
Welcome back to the Leadership Wound podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Rohr. It's where we explore the hidden cost of leadership. And in today's episode, we're going to be starting a special ongoing series within my podcast called the Unscripted Conversations. These conversations are intended to be woven throughout my regular episodes and are designed to be less like a formal interview and more like grabbing a cup of coffee or tea with a friend. In each episode, I sit down with leaders who are willing to lay down the script and share the truth behind their own leadership stories, the moments of pain, awakening, and transformation that have shaped how they lead today. These aren't conversations about polished strategy, but rather the honest truth about what happens when we stop pretending, we start healing, and we learn to lead like ourselves. In each of our conversations, we're going to move through 4 themes: how we define leadership beyond roles and titles. Next, we'll go into authenticity, what it really looks like in the real world. And then we're going to name our hidden leadership wounds. And then lastly, what we've learned through the journey of transformation. And by hearing leaders reflect on all of these 4 areas, we begin to see a little bit more of a fuller, honest picture of what authentic leading and living looks like today. Today, I'm honored to have my guest and friend, Amy D. Grossa. Amy is an educator, a transpersonal life coach, a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a Reiki master, associate professor of Spanish, and if that was not enough, the host of Into the Heart, Finding Wisdom Within, the podcast. She's also a mother of 4 amazing adult children. As a life coach, Amy empowers her clients to lead their most intentional and inspired lives, serving those who are navigating transformational seasons in relationships, career, family life, spirituality, and identity. She's guided by this beautiful truth that we heal in community. She specializes in heart-centered transpersonal coaching that supports women through transitions such as empty nesting, identity shifts, spiritual awakening, helping them to awaken their inner wisdom and strength. Amy, welcome to the Leadership Wound podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, Amanda, thank you for that beautiful introduction. It is my honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. We're going to begin by widening this view or definition that we have of leadership itself beyond the titles and the roles. I continue to hear over and over, I never thought of myself as a leader. So let me ask you this question. When you think about leadership today in today's culture, how would you define it? What words would you put to that word leadership that are beyond a position or authority?
What an exceptional question. And really, a reflection, an opportunity to think a little bit more about what a standard definition of a leader might be. I mean, I think a good leader, to me, the good leaders that I have had that have influenced me along the way, if I may say so, lead from their hearts. They lead
Mm.
with integrity, aligned with a sense of an essence, like the value of being honest with themselves.
Mm.
And what that looks like is that sometimes they make mistakes too. Sometimes they don't have all of the answers, but in helping lead you, or if you are someone who is in their leadership, might guide you to curiosity to find the answer or the solution on your own. A good leader is not necessarily somebody who, in my opinion, who commands above others or tells others what or
Mm.
how to do things, but who works in collaboration with the people that they are leading. I see true leaders, good leaders are people who are in the trenches with their people and working right
Yeah.
alongside with them. They're the best leaders that I've had the honor of working with.
Would you, as you look at yourself personally in your own journey, have you always seen yourself as a leader, an entrepreneur, or how has that evolved over time? How you view yourself as well as the concept of leadership, has that evolved for you?
It most definitely has evolved. You know, professionally, I've been a professor for longer than I've been a life coach, for example. And I've also been a mom. As you mentioned, I have 4 adult children. So I think there is a lot of leadership that occurs there as well,
Tons.
especially in the modeling and,
Mhm.
you know, everybody's watching sort of modality there
Yeah.
for sure. But I think, you know, when I stand in front of my students in a classroom or with my children, I truly want people to know that are in my presence and my life coaching clients as well, to let them know that I'm walking with them. I'm not
Mm.
above them. I'm not below them. I am walking right alongside them. And it is my true mission is to really be a mentor, a guide, sort of more of somebody who walks with you rather than is leading you with a sense of you must do this or you must do that. I have found as a teacher, for example, in the classroom, I tell my students right off the bat, you're going to make a lot of mistakes because whenever we're learning anything new, that's part of learning is
Yes, yes.
mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in everything that we do in life. And I think there's a certain amount of freedom in acknowledging that. And I further take that and say, I'm going to make mistakes too along the
Yeah.
way because I'm human.
Yeah.
And I best learn actually through making mistakes and have done so, I think, my entire life. I think
Mm.
that there is a certain amount of growth that happens from making mistakes, if you will. Some people may call that a failure. I don't see those as failures, actually. I think they are constructive stepping stones for growth.
Yeah,
And
information. I've learned that kind of terminology that it's not failure, it's information. And I love how you said you start off your classes saying you're going to make mistakes. I wish that more people said that to me along the way. Part of being human is doing missteps and you learn from it. So when we begin to normalize that, it's like, oh, this is actually part of the journey. This is actually supposed to happen rather than, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Something is wrong with me. I love how you start that out with your
Mhm.
students.
Yeah. You know, something that I've learned along the way too is we don't have, we don't have to have everything figured out in order to
Mhm.
take action. We can
Yes.
just take one step. What is the one next step that would be helpful in a situation?
Yeah.
And, you know, that helps me tremendously to not have to need to figure everything all out. All I know
Mhm.
is that right now, my next step is XYZ, right? It also allows me to drop into the present moment of what's happening, what's unfolding right now, both for myself and if I'm in conversation like with you in this moment, is to be able to lean into what's here for us to share today, right? To be really truly present to what it is that we are very intentionally sharing. And I think having intentionality in all
Yeah.
spaces is a real gift.
Yeah. The gift of intentionality and presence and moving away that scriptedness, like that perfectionism, taking, I think we have a shared mentor that said about taking imperfect action. What is the next step And it doesn't have to be perfect. We can take imperfect action rather than no action at all.
Love that because it's what gave me the impetus and the courage to start my own podcast actually through this program was, stepping into I don't have to have it perfect. I can work, it's a work in progress.
Yes.
It's a real gift to ourselves to give ourselves permission to make mistakes, to give ourselves permission to do it over if we have to, or of showing up just as we are some days.
Yes. And you know what? The other thing I keep reminding myself is nobody is so into you as you are yourselves. Like if you make mistakes, you're like so hard on yourself, but nobody is as into you and your mistakes as you are. They don't care, they're not looking at it. And so showing up more imperfect or taking that imperfect action, yeah, the presence, being present. Yes. So, so key. Okay, so one of the core themes in my own coaching practice is authenticity, what it means to lead and live as your true self instead of what you think you're supposed to be, or instead of the script that somebody else handed to you. So, if I would ask you, why do you think the world today, in today's culture, needs more authentic voices speaking into leadership circles? Why do you think the world needs more authenticity in today specifically?
That's a really beautiful question and a profound question too, because I think one's authentic self really requires knowing who we are. And
Mm,
it really requires doing the hard work and taking responsibility for who we're being and who we're showing up for in the world. That's what I see as authenticity.
mm,
It's owning when we make mistakes and apologizing.
yeah.
It is also leading from a place of, I'm not above you, I'm not below you, I am right here with you. And I think that that really speaks to me when I surround myself with people who are in my world, who I consider really authentic leaders. They're people who are vulnerable, who
Mm,
aren't afraid to share their mistakes or, things that maybe are not accepted in the social mainstream. And I think we are seeing more vulnerability in our culture today than we ever have before. I mean, I can think of so many different topics, but for example, something like mental illness has been in
mm.
my lifetime something that has completely kind of come out of the closet to a certain degree.
Yes, yes.
you know,
Hmm.
whereas when I was growing up and my mother suffered from depression, my grandmother would tell me, now we don't talk about this outside of the house. This
Mm.
is here. And so there's a lot of shame attached to that.
Yes, yes.
Being able to come forward all these years to be able to even be on your podcast sharing this information with you, knowing that I'm still honoring my mom and still loving her even though she had this affliction, it doesn't diminish her. I think it actually allows other people who might be listening to connect to, yeah, I also suffer from depression and it's okay. It's not taboo and it shouldn't be hidden, that it's all right to talk about difficult things or uncomfortable topics.
Yeah.
That's something that's a lived experience of mine. I'm sure there's lots of topics in other areas where this comes up.
Yeah. Yeah. And in an age today where things may have seemed taboo or not, we just don't talk about it. And yet we are personally struggling with it. To hear other people verbalize, put words towards what I'm actually struggling with. I mean, I actually appreciate the most about certain podcasts their authenticity, their transparency. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that. But yes, that's me too. It makes me feel normal. It makes me feel human when I hear other people. It just opens up the space to do that more. And I think this generation knows when fake is being portrayed to them because of their own lived real experience. I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
What
going
do
to
you
say,
think?
I think
Oh, go ahead.
also, sorry.
No, go
I
ahead. Go ahead.
also, just to add to that thought, I was thinking that something that we seek in our society is to be heard and to be
Mm.
seen and to be witnessed. And this is a new product, I think, of the evolution of our. I think years ago it was better to leave some things behind closed doors. And now people are
Mm.
here and they want to be heard and seen.
Yes, yes. And what do you think hinders people from being authentic? I mean, what hinders you from being authentic, presenting yourself? Yeah,
The first thing that comes to mind is fear, fear of being seen or fear of being judged, fear of not being good enough, or these are fears of things that can come up for any of us,
mm,
you know, in specific situations. And I think, fear is sort of an indicator that something is misaligned within us.
yes,
When we're leading authentically from our lives, can lean into a higher vibrational energies and frequencies and really begin to look at fear as, okay, there's something here I need to take a look at and lean into it rather than shy away from it or resist it or walk away from it, because then it just lives there.
yeah.
So I think that would be what
The
comes up.
fear, yes, yes. My husband is often really good at saying, okay, is fear your motivator,
Mm,
or is love the motivator moving forward? And the interesting thing is that the very thing that is hindering you showing up as your real self is actually the very thing that someone else needs to be able to say, oh my gosh, like there's someone else like that. Therefore, this whole fear thing doesn't need to enter into the equation. Um,
right.
yeah, so the very thing that is holding you back is actually what could help someone else.
Yeah, I like that. It taps into my I call it my mantra. I believe we heal in community, quite frankly, Amanda. I
Yeah.
think we need each other. We need each
Yes.
other to stay accountable. We need each other to really see ourselves. And we see ourselves reflected back in the experiences of others when we can connect with them, when we know we're really no different than, other people that are around us, but that parts of us we share. We have a shared
Yes.
humanity. And
Yes. I
yeah.
couldn't agree more. And personally, I believe that is, I mean, we are, in my faith tradition, we are saved, me and Jesus, but I am saved into a community,
Mm,
into to the church, into the body. And for
mhm.
that very reason, as I continue to work out my faith, as I continue to work out what humanity looks like, what does authenticity look like, I need others. So I think that's just so beautiful that we heal in community.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, before we move into our next part of the conversation, I want to frame it based on the inner work that I personally do and help others through. When I think about that word leadership, I defined it quite simply as the ability to influence. And since we all carry the ability to influence somebody, every one of us will at some point experience a leadership wound, a wounding done to us, we do to others. And in my own work, I've become deeply committed to normalizing that word wounding so that leaders can feel comfortable acknowledging their own wounds, a little bit of what we've talked about before, feeling comfortable acknowledging their own humanity without fear or judgment. And often that judgment is us giving it to ourselves. Because if we acknowledge our humanity, then we can also acknowledge our woundedness without shame, without thinking, is there something wrong with me because I'm experiencing this woundedness? No, that's called being human. And so personally, I felt compassion when other people, I felt more freedom when other people share their own. And so with that in mind, and with your own courage to name maybe your own wounding, what leadership wound have you had to face in the past, and what did it reveal about you as you went through that process?
Boy, that's a really deep question.
We're going deep.
We're going deep, nosedive. I think a leadership wound that I'm aware of within my own experience is one of not being good enough at times in my life where I have compared myself to others. And it is the work of digging deep into my own experience and going back to do some healing work, quite frankly, around those belief systems that I have carried with me from certain experiences in my childhood, for example, or my adolescence. I grew up in a foreign country. I didn't speak the language when I got there. Or I was young, I was a child, so there was a lot of fun made of my ability to communicate and speak. And the beautiful thing about this and what has come out of it, one of my coaches helped me see this, is out of something that was very painful and very challenging, I have created a lifelong career out of teaching.
Mm.
So
Oh,
it's
wow.
something I took something that was extraordinarily and extremely painful and difficult and challenging as a child and turned it into a means to help other people go through it with maybe more ease. And as I had mentioned earlier, acknowledging when I stand up in front of a classroom on the first day of class, you are going to make mistakes and it's okay. And I know this in my bones that they're going to make mistakes because I made them. And I think it's having this embodied experience that allows me to have grace when it
Mm.
comes to learning new things.
Yes, yes. And the very thing that you experienced that was used against you, the very thing that the enemy wanted
Huh?
to defeat you, how interesting. It is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even as you're with your teaching right now through your podcast, my podcast, communicating, tell me a little bit more about the comparison. That, yeah, it's really powerful. We all do it to some extent. What was it specifically as you like who were you comparing yourself to? I mean, you don't obviously name names or anything, but like
Sure.
walk me through that process of wounding. And it's interesting that it happened when you were young. I can think back to some of my probably middle school woundings in communication too. But yeah, speak about that.
Yeah, I have a very, very embodied experience of moving to Spain when I was 9 years old, being placed in a Spanish school where I was the only student in the entire school who spoke English. Everybody else was a native speaker.
Yeah.
And I couldn't communicate with anybody. I was really isolated from my classmates, from the teachers. I mean, as a small child, I think I probably cried every single day, didn't want to go to school,
Yeah.
and, would inevitably compare myself constantly to all of the other people around me. I couldn't speak the language. I had a foreign name. People couldn't pronounce my name. So this affected my identity for a long time, directly connected to all of that. And so at a very young, I was 9 years old, at a very young age, I learned about the importance of um, being a witness and an observer. In
Rather
fact,
than rather than speaking. Uh-huh. You became silent. You backed off.
I did.
And you probably I've heard people talk about how like we can look back with compassion on that little girl,
Mhm.
that may have been what you needed to do in that moment and it got you through.
It did until it didn't,
Yeah.
until fast forward many years and decades later into a crisis, for example, in my marriage, where I wasn't feeling safe enough to use my voice to really speak what was in my heart and what was true, going along to get along kind of situation,
Yes.
which
Yes.
eventually resulted in the rupture of my relationship for other reasons too. It
Yeah.
wasn't just but this was my part in it. This is
Mm.
what I take responsibility for. So being able to lean into seeing how having a voice, knowing that one has not only that you have a voice, but that you have a place. We all have a
Mm.
divine birthright to be here, and we're here,
Mm.
I think, to be able to expand, to grow, and to live our most authentic life, as
Yeah.
you are discussing and talking here,
Yeah.
which for me means aligned with the true nature of who we are. And if I'm not using my voice, then I'm not being true
Mm.
to myself.
Yes, yes. Well, that transitions really well into the next section. First of all, thank you for your braveness. I know that there are listeners out there that will resonate with what you're saying and that also need to go back to their little girl and give compassion to her and say, that was then, but now I have a voice and it is very powerful. It is very strong and it is time to My coach said the other day, it is time to resurrect that little girl, resurrect her, take her out of the tomb because she has powerful things to do. And what a privilege it is that we get to do that to ourselves. And that is the inner work that I find that few people are willing to do. Inner work is hard. The first step, though, is acknowledging, naming that wound. And then this last section, as we go into the healing, what it looked like to return to your true self. Tell me a little bit about how did you do that inner work? Who helped you? Was that a solo journey? What practices did you do? Get practical for me as much as you want to about how you transition from, oh my gosh, I have this wounding to I'm starting the healing journey.
Yeah. It was a process. It wasn't, I didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, I need to go do some work, but it gradually unfolded. And it was sort of an interesting conversion of different things that were happening. My children were growing up and leaving the house. We were becoming empty nesters. I was physically going through the change of life. My husband and I were distanced from one another. It was just all these things were very apparently getting very loud in my life. And as my house got quieter, and as my last child left, I realized I need to do something different. Something feels misaligned here. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm no longer the mom who, takes kids to the X, Y, and Z and does all of these different things. My role was shifting. My identity was shifting.
Yeah.
And so my first instinct was to connect to my spirit. I didn't know that that's what was happening at the time, but I was invited to attend some classes at the School of Metaphysics, and I went to learn about consciousness. And I learned about meditation and visualization and concentration and attention and energy and all of these concepts, universal laws, responding instead of reacting to life, all of these things that laid a new foundation for me to use as a springboard, really, in my spiritual awakening. And I found community there. And this was the beginning of this mantra of mine that we heal in community. Yes, I was able to be a student there, and then I became a teacher there. And then it got to a place where I recognized that there were some wounds within me that needed tending to, and I needed therapy. So I went to therapy, and in therapy uncovered a whole bunch of different things that were happening, a lot of them related to codependent behaviors that allowed me to see who I was being. And for the first time, I started questioning, but wait, who am I really? Years later, the question I ask is, who am I going to be every single day? Who do I choose to show up as every single day? And I want that to be in alignment with the most authentic, the truest part of who I am. And so for me, it's been a journey of self-discovery on all levels, mental, emotional, intellectual, physical, all of it. Absolutely. It applied to every single level of my being. And I think what wound up happening is things needed to fall apart completely to rebuild, to start over, almost sort of rising from the ashes, if you will. And, for some people, that's considered the hero's journey, the heroine's journey. You can look at it in many different ways and call it, whatever resonates with you. What's important is as we rise back up, knowing who we are, knowing that we have choice, knowing that that we're aligned, knowing that we want to live from certain values such as honesty and integrity and respect and kindness and generosity and compassion and empathy and love. And all of these things that are really truly a mark of the essence, the essential quality, I think, of our spirit, which is something not unique to me. It is all of us.
To humanity. Yeah. I always like to say knowing who we are and whose we are. Created child of God, a daughter of the King, and knowing that if you could say one thing to your younger self, what would it be around this wounding? If you could go back, none of us want to go back. We're glad for what happened because it's made us who we are. But if you could, and would, what would it be? What would you say to your younger self?
Trust yourself. Trust your heart. You have all the answers within you. I wish I had known that at an earlier age.
Yeah. The beauty is now you get to lead others
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's such beauty and wisdom from those who have traveled the journey already. And now people are wanting to follow, which is a lot of what coaching is, I think. Let me walk alongside of you. Let me share with you what I've gone through. Let me empower you. Let me tell
Mhm.
you what I wish someone would have told me in the journey. Yes. Wow, this has been such a beautiful and meaningful conversation. Thank you for being brave enough to speak the truth of your own authenticity, including the wounds and the healing journey. Before we close, I just want to give you the last word. Is there anything on your heart that you would want to communicate to leaders or maybe people who don't even see themselves as leaders? What would that be?
Something that I've learned from a coach of mine is empathy before information.
Say more.
I think it revolves around, for me, it means listen with your heart instead of your head. You know,
Mm.
we're faced with lots of decisions every day. We're faced with a lot of experiences that we may or may not like or enjoy around us or that feel uncomfortable. Decisions sometimes that we don't want to make, right? I think if we can center ourselves from a place of empathy instead of
Mm.
trying to reason through it and make decisions from our head, but really drop into the heart,
Yes.
allow ourselves to lead with empathy. That person must be having a bad day instead of
Mm.
making a judgment about that
Yeah,
person.
that's so key. And I think you mentioned about the movement in your own life. It got quiet in your house. And I think that silence is such a key, the pausing into what you just mentioned, because that's when you begin to get into the heart.
Yeah,
If you're constantly go, 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 this is what operates in that mode.
that's so true.
Yeah. If anyone is wanting to learn more about you, about your work, or connect with you, where can they find you at?
So they can reach me through my website at pathways-to-purpose-coaching.com or email me at amy@pathways-to-purpose-coaching.com. I'm also on Instagram at Pathways to Purpose Life Coach. Or you can reach out to me. You can DM me on Facebook. It's Amy DeGrossa. You can find me there as well.
Okay, great. And I think do you have a free gift or anything for people who connect with you?
I do on my website. Yes. I have a beautiful reflective journal called Awaken to Your Inner Power, which is digitally accessible through the website. And I also have a heart-centered meditation there. And it leads you on a little journey into your own heart. And it gives you an opportunity to pause and reflect, as you were just saying, Amanda, about spending some time with your own heart. So I invite you to go to the website and download those things for free.
Awesome. Great. Well, Amy, thank you again for just sharing your heart, your wisdom. I think that the world, the church, wherever we're coming from, needs to hear more diversity about people's journey, because at the end of the day, we all bleed the same. We are all humans, and to be able to spend time and just listen a little bit about each other's woundedness and how we've healed is just such a gift. To those who are listening, if this conversation resonated with you, please share it with somebody. Share it with somebody who might need to be reminded that they are not alone in their journey. They're not alone in their woundedness, and that there is healing on the other side of that woundedness. If anything that Amy spoke today about her approach to coaching or healing spark something in you, I encourage you to reach out to her through the ways that she had mentioned. And if you're ready in your own timing to start living and leading authentically, I offer a free 30-minute conversation. I'd love to start the conversation about how you can begin to live and lead authentically. Thanks again for tuning in to the Leadership Wound podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. Stay tuned for more conversations just like this. Until next time, lead like you.